Hi everybody, how are you today? Um, this is technically day 8, but I'm recording it at night because we have a busy day tomorrow as far as traveling and going to the next spot. So I'm just gonna record this. I hate nighttime during this whole toxic 30, leaving a toxic partner and 30-day no contact, which I'm gonna try and do, or make it longer, but I hate the dark. I hate nighttime. This is the time when I start to miss him the most. I still miss this guy. So the most I can do is kind of just try to remember all the things that happened in a relationship and why I shouldn't feel guilty for leaving or feel like this was a mistake. So looking into some red flags in our relationship. Okay, we're gonna do that now, and this might be like a part 1 because there's a lot. It was 12 years. So it started from the very beginning. I was 23 years old. I just got back from college and I was still getting my life figured out. But I think I was just in a really bad place. I ended up meeting a guy who took advantage of me. Basically forced himself on me. I consented in a way, but not necessarily. Basically forced his way onto me, and it really just screwed me up big time. I started to think less of myself, think I'm worthless, and maybe I'll just be this person. And I ended up drinking more and meeting other guys, nothing sexual, but allowing them to advance on me, and just not respecting my body, not respecting myself. I was in a really dark place, and this is when I met my toxic partner. We met through friends, a family member, and I was intrigued by him. He's like this mystery man. I could tell something was going on with him, and I just wanted to get to know him better. He actually kissed me one time. It was during this time when I was, kissing other guys and being stupid. And I was just kind of like, okay, what was that? But then I ended up taking him on a little drive one night, and I actually was one that asked him out. I asked him out. And right from the beginning, he was like, well, tell me about your other relationships. Like, how many men have you been with, and who do you hang out with? Like, right off the bat. I basically asked him, to go steady because I wanted to show him, like, hey, there's nobody else I'm interested in. Like, I want you to know that I'm serious about this. And I already had bad feeling from the very beginning. But I decided to just be honest with him, be open about my previous relationships, and long story short, basically he used that as ammunition against me. Through our whole relationship. I was being punished for being honest, for being open. And from there, we started to hang out every single day. And of course, you're in the romantic portion of the relationship, you want to hang out and stuff like that. But I think it was like the third date we had. We were hanging out at my house, listening to some music, cleaning my car, and then he said, "I love you." And I was kind of taken back by that. Like, wow, we've known each other less than a week, and you're already saying that. But I said it back. I said, "I love you too." And it was just like, I need to look into that. I need to research that. But right now I'm feeling like that was like the handcuffs on me, I guess. Like, okay, I got her. She says she loves me. She can't take it back. She said it. From the very beginning, like the constant having to constantly check in with him started. First time, at first it was kind of subtle, but I think there was like one day where he called me and I didn't have my phone on me, and I didn't call him back till like 15 minutes later, and he's just kind of implying like I was doing something bad, I guess. Like flipped out on me for not having my phone on me. And I didn't think really much of it at that time because it was pretty subtle. But I was like, okay, looks like I'm gonna have to like keep my phone on me all the time. And then I made sure to answer his calls on time. And then it was like, okay, now you need to text me when you get to work. Show me pictures, like prove to me where you're at. And I was just started to get irritated, like, what the heck, I've never had to do this before. Like, this has never come up in my previous relationships. And that was hard for me to deal with because I started to feel anxiety, like, oh no, I'm gonna have to have my phone on me all the time. Like, what if I miss a call? Is he gonna get mad at me? But I decided to just stick up with it and just do it. It wasn't too bad yet, right? And then I think a couple months after we'd been dating, then he finally opened up about his history and being married and having a son, and gave me the just like call me. It was like, well, I'm gonna let you think about it. I'll call you back in like half an hour if you still wanna be with me. I really, really like you, and I hope that you can accept me for all of these things. He told me that his wife cheated on him, but I'm not even sure to this day if that was true. So I thought in my head, I really like this guy. This could be, this could be serious. I could see myself with him for a long time. So I accepted him. I decided let's continue. And then it kind of like his control or his stronghold was starting to get tighter and tighter. He was ashamed to introduce me to his family or let anybody know that he was dating me. I'm not sure why. I was very like open with my family. Like, this is who I'm with. This is my guy. So he did start to he introduced me to his friends and stuff. Got back in the bar scene, and I remember one particular night I ended up just chatting with one of his friends, just real whatever, like, okay, I want to be the cool girlfriend, like, right? Get to know them and stuff. And it was nothing serious, just talking story while he was over there smoking weed or whatever he was doing. But we got in the car and I was in a good mood. We previously to getting in the car, he was like cracking up with his friends. Then he just was like stonewall, like quiet. And I'm trying to have fun with him, like, hey, hey, babe. And then he was just like looking dead straight. And my heart just like started to flutter, like, oh no, what's going on? This is the first time I said it. Did I do something wrong? And then he just kind of unleashed on me. He's like, what? You were flirting with him, weren't you? You like him, yeah? You like him. Let me go get his number. You want his number? You want his number? You want to find out where he's at? Go with him then. Go with him. And I was like floored. I was floored. I never, ever dealt with this in any of my relationships. Like, what the hell is going on now? I only conversated with another guy, and he's over here losing his shit. And that was the first time I ever got into a screaming match. And prior to any of my other relationships, I was never that way. I would usually maybe distance myself for a little bit and then all good. But I didn't even know I could do that. Like, I could scream like that. And we just had like this total screaming match over this one conversation I had with this guy. Basically, so this, I don't continue talking about this, but that became a constant issue in our relationship. I would go say hi to somebody who was a guy, or try to talk to one of his friends, or like look in the direction of where another guy was, and he would always just do that. Make me feel like I did something wrong, like that was totally wrong. He never ever said it, but he basically always implied that I was like this loose girl and I was this flirt and this slut. But he would never say it, and then he'd be like, "Oh, you're the one who said it. I didn't say it." You know, putting words into making me say things because I knew that's what he was thinking. And then he started to basically throughout our relationship, accuse me of all of the, like, this being promiscuous. He accused me of fooling around or trying to flirt with every male member that he was affiliated with. His nephews who are like around our same age, family members, friends, to the point where it's like I didn't even know where to walk or what direction to look. Like, I ended up feeling like I was walking on eggshells all the time. Anytime we were around other people, like, I just had to look at the floor because I didn't want him to think that way of me. I didn't want to argue. I didn't want to fight. So I started to put my head down. So there's the phone. The jealousy started. The first year with the family was alright. He liked my mom and dad. He enjoyed coming around, but every time he talked, it was like he was always just like boosting himself up, like, "Oh, I do this and I do that, and I'm a boxer," and I just like constantly talk about himself. And I try to tell him, "You don't need to do that. Just be yourself." But he always had to boost his ego, always make him look like he's the big shot. I could tell my parents, my father was kind of just like, "Oh, okay. I don't know what this guy's deal is, but she likes him, so let's try to like him." But not too long into it, because my family's really close. We get together, we vacation together, Thanksgiving, all the holidays and stuff, regular Thursday night, just have dinner. And basically, like, he knew me as this one person, like, throughout our relationship, like when it's just me and him, but then not realizing, like, this is the person I was before I met him, like really in tune, really close to my family, really connected with them. And he started to hate it. He started to hate when we used to go and hang out with my family. He'd always stonewall me after and be like, you're acting different. You're acting different. And it basically implying like, you're not who I thought you were. You're lying to me. You know what I mean? You're just ignoring me all the time. Like, how come every time we're with them, you just like ignore me? It's like, when I'm with your family, like, you just go and leave me somewhere, and I'm cool by myself. Like, I didn't know I had to hold your hand everywhere we went. And then he's like, the negativity started, like, "Oh, your parents hate me," and talking bad about my mom and my dad and my sister and everything, like. And sometimes I would just, like, for sake of not having to argue, I would just kind of agree with him. Be like, yeah, you're right, Yeah, my sister can be that way or whatever. But that's more ammunition. He would hold that against me. When I started to want to hang out with my family, he's like, well, you said this about them, you said that, like, why don't you just come and hang out with me? Like, do you really have to go? Your parents hate me, I don't want to go up there, I don't want to go up there. So to avoid arguments, and if I did go without him, I'd constantly have to message him. Like, I didn't even get to hang out with the family because he was either calling me or texting me or having me send pictures. I didn't have any fun with them. I had like, basically I was like, okay, let's eat 2 hours and I'm out because I don't want to deal with this. And I stopped hanging out with them because I just didn't want to deal with it anymore. I didn't want to argue. I didn't want to do any of that. I started to miss out on everything. My sister has 2 kids and I missed out on all of it, like pregnancy and being an auntie. He always found other, like, her husband as a threat, his brothers as a threat. Like, every man was basically a threat to him, and I was just like gonna be that kind of girl who's just gonna fucking up and leave him, and I had to constantly prove my loyalty and my love for him. I always had to boost him up, like, well, why do you love me? Tell me all the things, like, just had to like gloat about him. And I even did that when he wasn't around. And then that was kind of like the continuous cycle: jealousy, control. But when things were good, they were good, and they would be good for months or a year. But I was losing that. I was losing my own identity during that time. It was good because I was acting how he wanted me to be. As long as, I went to work, I didn't get to hang out with any of my friends. He hated all my friends. He kind of did that thing where, like, oh yeah, go with them, then just leave me. Making me feel guilty for wanting to try to keep my life and still have a relationship with him. And I just started to distance myself. I hated it. I hated myself for doing that. I hated the fact that I couldn't put my foot down. Because when I tried, it was like I was this loose fucking girl and I was different and all of this stuff. And then finances started to come into play. So he would ask, like very slyly, like ask for my debit card number or something for like some app, something like that. I would use his phone to log into my bank account. He'd set up like PayPal, Venmo, but he was pretty good at working that system, and he was slowly taking my money. He would take my money to the ATM, withdraw like 200, 500, how much ever he could, take money from PayPal, started using my cards to pay for all of his stuff, like bills and everything like that. And it had to be my job to constantly monitor my own bank account to see where the hell my money was going. There's so many times where I go to the store and I get declined because the $1,500 I had, he took it all. But he would, he would take that money but then spend it on me, kind of thing. Like, just kind of, okay, I know it's your money, but just let me hold it and let me be the one to buy you stuff. When I ended up getting the house, that just pissed him off. He never liked that house because it was technically under my name, and I wasn't going to give it to him. I wasn't going to put him on the title. My grandma helped all of us grandkids buy the house. I couldn't do that to her. And we weren't married or anything. So he always hated the fact that wasn't his. And there's so many times where he's like, I'm not gonna do shit because this is your fucking house. This is your house. Oh, your parents probably just think I'm some loser because you know what I mean? You keep saying it's mine, it's mine. How come you always say it's my house? Why can't you say it's our house? So I say, yeah, it's our house, Um, Another thing that started to happen was he would tell me about like all of these girls who were like hitting on him, and basically like that there was other competition out there. I wasn't the only one who liked him, and just kind of getting me to react. And I'm not the jealous type, of course. Sometimes like it's natural. You see your guy having fun or talking to some other girl smiling, you think in your back head like, man, you know what I mean? Come over here and hang out with me. But I never got rage jealous like he did. And he would do that to me constant. I think that's called gaslighting. Um, and just kind of like make me feel like I even had to work harder to show that I was the one, I was the best. Um, Attacking my character like that. He did that a lot to me. Um, Sorry, guys. I'm trying my best to think. That's why I know I'm gonna have to backtrack. Um, that whole thing with the house and being able to find a good job. I was making more money than he was. He never ever, he never ever congratulated me on my accomplishments. It was all about his accomplishments. Like, well, I think he would just tell me like, oh no, but at my job I'm getting $24 an hour, but the paychecks didn't reflect that. I was still paying for a lot of stuff, so I wasn't sure. This is about 3 or 4 years into the relationship. This is the constant cycle, red flags that would be happening in a relationship. And then the money thing got worse. He started, him and his family started talking about getting his son from the Philippines. And I think they found out that, my family's fairly well off. My grandma's always generous with her money. But I started to use all of that money for him. Thousands of dollars. Thinking I'm doing the right thing. I'm going to get his son and all of that. I think it was like I would pay for the ticket. I would give him like $3,000 for 2 weeks in the Philippines. Then that 2 weeks would go by, and then he'd say, I'm going to stay for another week. I need another $1,200. What the hell did you do with $2,000 in 2 weeks? You know what I mean? I never questioned him. I never checked his bank account. But yeah, he was taking money. It got to the point where like I was opening up credit cards, using like PayPal credit. Like I was in debt. I had some money in stocks and bonds. I started to pull that out to help him. I was always generous with my money. Stupid. Anytime he wanted to apply for a loan, I was one that had the good credit. I tried to help him with that, but he's always like, you just trying to be like you're smarter than me. And I could never get on top of my finances. I could never generate a savings because of him. So that happened, and that continued for all the way to the end of me leaving. Always in the back of my mind, it was like he would constantly belittle me. Like he would just straight talk shit about me, like in front of everybody. Like, oh, look at her, look at how stupid she's being. I always felt in the back of my mind he was just there for my money. Like, this guy basically doesn't like anything about me, so there must be some reason. And that was a horrible feeling. Always knowing like, okay, if I just be more generous, like he'll end up liking me. If I constantly allow him to monitor me, he'll end up liking me. If I spend all my time with me, he'll end up liking me. But I never ever felt like I was good enough. Never ever did. I remember at that point too with like the arguments. I hated myself. I was never like that. I didn't even know I could scream that loud. But we get into horrible screaming matches, and and his behavior was very hot and cold. So I was always walking on eggshells with him. Sometimes he would be happy, and like the next moment, he would just switch off and just be mad about something. It was almost like it's almost like he didn't feel like things were normal unless there was a problem, unless there was conflict. He constantly needed conflict. I remember I would just come home and just want to ask him how his day was and give him a hug, and he would just be pissed. And sometimes it wouldn't even be about me, but I'd be like the punching bag. I'd have to deal with all of his anger and stuff. And I started to feel so alone, so isolated. Like I had nobody to talk to about this stuff. All I could do is talk to God, or just say like, no, I know I'm a good person. Luckily, I had that in me to where he couldn't diminish me enough, because God knows and I know that I feel like I'm a good person, you know. Um, what was I gonna say? Um, oh yeah, with the screaming. He started to call me names like, oh, look at you, you're fucking crazy. You're being a bitch. You're being such a bitch. Why do you respond like that? You must be hiding it. You must be hiding something, or you must be lying every time you act like that. But no, that was just my anger, my rage. Like he was making me look like this horrible person, and I hated that. I always hated that. So I decided, okay, maybe I'll just put my head down and I'll just be quiet, and he's asking me to understand him, so I'm just gonna shut my mouth and allow him to say whatever he wants. And I did that for a good 5 or 6 months, and that was horrible. I'm still traumatized from that, because when I wouldn't talk, he would just fucking unload on me, insult me. He would insult me a whole lot more, call me stupid and dumb and ugly and all of this stuff, you know. And I would just sit there and I would cry. Like, why is this? Why? I love him. Like, why is he treating me like that? Like, I would literally, like, try to hug him, and he would push me away. He would push me away. And that made me feel so horrible about myself and so mad with him. So mad with him. Like, I'm trying everything with this guy. And I ended up just crying every day because he was just treating me so horribly. And one day I just snapped. I said, I'm a tittle at heart, right? Us Hawaii girls, we got some attitude. Just comes with the territory. But I started to snap back. And that's kind of where I stayed in the relationship all the way through. Very defensive. Felt like I had to defend myself against him. My heart started to get blacker and darker. And during that time, he was saying that's how the world is. The world is this dark place, and everyone's out to get you. You got to remember that. I was losing everything that made me me. I lost everything that made me me. And it was like I became the person he wanted me to be. And anytime I would resist that, he'd be like, oh, you're different. No, I'm just trying to be how I was. The life I used to have, it was gone. And I couldn't talk to my family about it, because if I did, then I know that they would drag me out of there. And I still loved him. We got his son back, and I did my role, man. I freaking did my role. Um, and he was like always in an angry state, always in a depressive state. You know, he started even to do that to his son. Like we were both victims to his turmoil, and that was the constant cycle. So I'm dealing with controlling me by monitoring me, controlling my finances, controlling who I hung out with, and controlling my behavior. Um, the thing with the roses, that started in the very beginning. I remember like 5 months after we were dating, I forgot to call him at work or something like that, and he blew up on me on the phone. He's like, "Fuck this! Like I don't even got time for you. I got a wife and a son to think about. You're just wasting my time." I was pissed. I hung up the phone. I went straight to my cousins and like had a couple beers and told them everything. I was like, "Fine, it's done. I don't have to do this anymore." Um, had a couple drinks with them. Went home to my parents' house, and then the next morning he shows up with a single red rose. And I never had a guy ever bring me flowers before. I thought it was the sweetest thing in the world. You know what I mean? Every time he showed his vulnerable side, I was so weak for him. I was so weak for him. Bring on the waterworks and the tears and woe is me, kind of thing. But that was that was 5 months into the relationship, and there were many, many, many more flowers and chocolates after that. He would blow up at me, make me cry, make me angry. Sometimes I was just stubborn. I didn't, you know what I mean? He'd say such hurtful things that, I became cold, but he would always drag me back in. Um, say like, oh, let's just, can we cuddle? I'll massage your back. I'll rub your feet. Always made me feel like $1,000,000 one day and then trash the next day. You know what I mean? Like I'm a princess and I'm fucking a toad. The constant back and forth was it was so exhausting. So exhausting. I mean, I could tell you there's probably a whole lot more that I'm gonna unravel, but I need to also acknowledge the good things and Ho'oponopono, trying to understand him, trying to understand why he was like that. So I'll dive into that. But I'll circle back with you guys tomorrow as far as like listing out the red flags. We're gonna do the pros and cons, right? In your relationship, the pros and cons. And you need to figure out for yourself what, do the cons weigh out the pros. Because all of those red flags out of all the good things he did kind of trumps it all. And I was just so blind to it. I didn't see it until now. I'm seeing it now that I don't have to talk to him, and now I get to kind of assess everything. I'm seeing it now. I'm seeing it so much clearer. On day 8 or 9, I don't know, I'll put it in the description. I'm losing track of my days. That's good, right? So I don't know, my heart's still like all over the place. This is tough, guys, just as far as dealing with what's going on in here, and educating myself to figure it all out. I'm gonna set up a therapy session, so I advise you guys, like, you're gonna need to reach out a support group or therapy or something to help you in this whole process, because you need, it's better to start to understand the whole dynamics of your situation. So I encourage you guys to do that, to I'm reaching out to my insurance carrier and whoever I can get through my insurance. And there's free support groups, so I'm sure you can look into that too, wherever you're at. Or if it's safe to do so, just reach out to friends or family. But I got a lot to deal with up here. He screwed me up big time. He screwed me up big time. So that's what I'm dealing with now. But I want to thank you for your time. And I love you all. And you're just wonderful people. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you later. Wala mo po, no?